It all begins with Jack Harper, who used to have recurring dreams about a woman whose identity he couldn't fully remember. 5 years had passed since the mandatory erasure of his memory, but those fragments lingered in his mind, tormenting him. Harper now served as a drone technician. He shared his life with Victoria Olsen on a space platform where they had both been assigned. It was the year 2077, half a century had passed since the Scavengers destroyed the moon, an event that plunged Earth into chaos. As a result, the planet was devastated and subsequently faced an alien invasion. Although humanity managed to win the war using nuclear weapons, this left the planet severely contaminated and nearly uninhabitable. In light of this situation, humans were forced to abandon Earth and now reside in a temporary space station called TED, while they await permanent migration to Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Jack and Victoria work as drone technicians on Earth, constantly monitoring the platforms. Jack conducts daily patrols aboard a spacecraft, overseeing the operation of these drones, which are crucial for protecting the energy generators known as hydro platforms. Their main goal is to prevent possible attacks from the Scavengers, who, for unknown reasons, have not completely ceased their resistance. Jack maintains regular contact with his superior at TED, sending reports on his progress with Victoria's assistance, while she longs to complete the mission so they can reunite with the rest of humanity. Jack feels that, despite everything, Earth is still his true home. One morning, during a patrol, Jack heads out to repair 2 downed probes, apparently damaged after a possible attack by the Scavengers. These probes played a crucial role in protecting the platforms during the night, so they couldn't be left inoperable. That day, a severe storm was making communications and visibility difficult. As a result, Victoria couldn't accurately track Jack's location. Upon arriving at the site, Jack begins repairing probe 166, unaware that he is being watched from a distance by aliens. While he works, he chats with Victoria about the last Super Bowl that took place in that field, reminiscing about a fragment of Earth's past. Once the repair is finished, Jack senses a nearby presence and, for a moment, suspects it might be a threat. However, he discovers it's just a dog. To prevent the probe from attacking him, Jack fires a shot into the air to scare it off. The probe, for its part, scans the surroundings thoroughly and, finding no anomalies, quickly retreats. Jack sets out to find the second probe, this time moving on foot. However, the device isn't emitting any signals, making it hard to locate. Eventually, he is led to a sinkhole that he must enter to continue the search. Inside, he discovers the remains of an ancient library, now reduced to rubble. Guided only by the sound that supposedly comes from the probe, he moves cautiously. However, when he reaches the source of the noise, he realizes it's not the actual probe but a recording used as a decoy. There, he understands that the Scavengers have set a trap for him. Just as he tries to back away, his foot gets caught in a trap and he is dragged into the building. Jack fights with all his strength until he manages to free himself. However, the Scavengers have removed the beam he crossed earlier, forcing him to make a risky jump to reach the other side. At the last moment, he manages to grab on, avoiding a fall into the abyss. He quickly hooks himself to his harness to ascend, but before he can get to safety, it explodes, causing him to fall. Once again, at that critical moment, Probe 166 arrives to assist him, eliminating the Scavengers and allowing Jack to regain his freedom. Once out of the pit, he realizes that his motorcycle has also been stolen, forcing him to walk back to the base. Jack checks a book he brought with him, a collection of songs from ancient Rome. Later, while having dinner, he expresses his concern to Victoria about what happened, pointing out that the Scavengers didn't try to kill him, rather, they seemed to intend to capture him. To ease the tension and change the mood, Victoria invites him to swim in the pool. In that tranquil space, they share an intimate moment. While they are sleeping, a loud explosion reverberates throughout the station, waking her up. One of the platforms has been blown to pieces. Determined to find out the cause of the incident, Jack embarks on a mission to report what happened to TET. During the process, he discovers that the Scavengers had placed a bomb in the water, intending for it to be absorbed by the hydrogen generator, which would trigger the explosion. Suddenly, Jack receives a radio signal, but upon investigating, he realizes it doesn't come from TET. Intrigued, he decides to follow the signal to discover its origin. He realizes that the Scavengers have been using the Empire State Building's antenna to transmit coordinates into space about a specific location on Earth. When Victoria investigates the coordinates, she finds nothing at the site, increasing suspicion about the situation. Faced with uncertainty, Jack decides to take drastic measures and cut the device to interrupt the communication. With one less burden, Jack decides to take a walk and returns to a small cabin in the woods, which he had carefully prepared with everything needed for living. Lying on the grass, he momentarily falls asleep. In his dream, he experiences a deep connection with that place from the past, recalling the scene with the woman who had appeared in his dreams. This time, he sees that woman again, who calls him by name, startling him awake immediately. Suddenly, an explosion on the horizon and the sound of a ship interrupt his rest. Thinking it was the downing of another hydro platform, Jack rushes to investigate. TET orders the drones to take care of it, however, he wants to ensure there's no lingering danger. Upon arrival, he discovers that there are humans in hibernation pods located exactly where the signal was being transmitted. Unexpectedly, the pods are attacked by a drone, which, upon noticing Jack's presence, retreats. In that scenario, Jack rescues Julia Ruzakova, who turns out to be the woman from his dreams. Julia was aboard the spaceship Odyssey, which had been in orbit for over 60 years before crashing to Earth in a time before the war. Jack takes her back to the base, and along with Victoria, they manage to get her out of the pod. At first, Julia is overwhelmed by the amount of information she receives, but she soon begins to adjust to the new reality. Julia expresses her desire to repair the black box of the ship to find out what happened, and under Victoria's supervision and with Jack's company, they embark on the mission. Together, they manage to recover the black box, but they are intercepted and captured by the Scavengers, who knock them out and take them to their headquarters. Jack's ship was programmed to return to the platform as soon as a similar circumstance occurred, so Victoria, realizing the situation, tried to prevent the TET director from finding out about Julia and the black box. To Jack's surprise, he discovers that the Scavengers are actually humans. The leader of the Scavengers asks him what he's looking for in the old books, reciting the same poem Jack had read before, implying that it was no coincidence he found that book. They ask him if he has ever seen the Scavengers up close, as they are all human. They explain that the drones have been killing humans and question him about the restricted areas, asking if he has ever been there or if he has stopped to think about what is really happening on the other side. Meanwhile, Victoria had sent a drone to search for Jack, under the supervision of the TET agent. The agent asks her if she has a good relationship with Jack, to which Victoria, forcing her response, assures her that everything is in optimal condition. Underground, the Scavengers reveal to Jack that they were the ones who shot down the Odyssey and that they also have the missing drone in their possession. They ask for his help to adapt it with a nuclear device, as Jack is the only one who knows this technology well. This group's desire is to destroy TET, but Jack refuses, knowing that many people live there. This ignites the general's anger, who threatens them with force while aiming his weapon, ready to shoot. The situation is interrupted by a security alarm, as Victoria's drone had followed Jack's trail to his location. In response, they sent agents to recover the drone. Victoria, seeing that the drone had disconnected, requested permission to send more to that location, determined to find Jack. Below, the Scavengers also knew that reinforcements wouldn't stop coming until they found the man, so time was becoming increasingly limited. They released Jack and his companion, returning his motorcycle and providing him with key information. If he was looking for answers, he would find them in the restricted area, where radiation was supposedly higher. After driving several miles, the vehicle ran out of gas, forcing them to continue on foot to the Empire State Building. There, Jack sent a signal to Victoria to inform her that he had arrived safely. She cancelled the search and, relieved, sent the ship for their rescue. Jack took advantage of the privacy to ask Julia about her true mission and why she was aboard the Odyssey. She explains that she was part of the team designated to explore Titan, but her mission was redirected upon detecting a strange object approaching. Thus, her new mission was to investigate this unidentified body, which turned out to be nothing less than what is now TET. Jack goes into crisis mode and tells her it's impossible, demanding to know who she really is. With melancholy, Julia simply whispers that she is his wife. All those dreams he had were her memories trying to return to him. He had asked Julia that day to go up to the observation deck of the Empire State. Once there, he proposed to her, assuring her that he would show her the future while holding a ring. She, very happy and excited, accepted. The ship had arrived, but through the cameras, Victoria had witnessed the close contact between Jack and Julia, which completely shattered her. When they returned to the base, she refused to let them pass, despite Jack's explanations. Without further ado, Victoria reported the situation to TET, claiming that the subject was no longer fit for the mission and that he had found a survivor in the crash area. Jack asked her why she had done that, to which she replied that she just wanted to go to Titan with the others. Jack told her that Titan didn't exist and that they had been lying to them. Victoria simply asked him to stay away from her. A drone at the base was activated. This was a hunting device intended for agents who strayed from protocol. It burst in violently, taking everything in its path, and shot at Jack, but it also killed Victoria. Julia, who was still on the ship, shot the drone, taking it out of commission and eliminating the threat. Through the control panel, they communicated with the TET agent, who informed them that they both needed to board the space station and that the mission on Earth could end there. Now knowing the whole truth, Jack decides that the best course of action is to flee. So, along with his companion, they escape. More drones were sent after them. Our protagonist tries to lose them in the storm, but it proves impossible, so he decides to use the lightning to his advantage, temporarily disabling the ships. Then, on the cliff, he causes some rocks to fall on one of the drones, destroying it. Another is taken out by gunfire, and the last one, which had been fiercely pursuing them, destabilizes and crashes into the ship itself. Fortunately, they emerged unscathed from the attack. Now, his main concern was that they were stranded in the middle of the desert. Jack asked Julia to stay with what was left of the ship while he looked for a way to get out of there. Suddenly, a ship landed next to the fallen drone, which deeply unsettled Jack, as those ships only belonged to TET. From a distance, through the broken sight of his weapon, he spotted someone approaching the artifact. Intrigued, he ran toward her, asking her to stop. Face to face, Jack realized it was himself. The agent aimed his weapon at him and demanded that he drop his own, so Jack, surrendering to him, complied. Julia appeared and asked them to stop. This distraction proved beneficial for Jack, who subdued his other self and choked him unconscious. While they were fighting, Julia noticed that, due to the crash, she had suffered a severe abdominal injury and had been losing a lot of blood, which caused her to faint. Jack realized what had happened and rushed to her aid, taking her to a safe place. Before leaving to find something to help her, he noticed something curious about the ship. The pilot number was different, which led him to cross the border and be guided to another base, where another Victoria was waiting for him. This discovery surprised him greatly, as he didn't fully understand what was happening. He excused himself to Victoria, claiming he had to leave quickly, and managed to slip away without much trouble. With a special device he had taken from the base, he treated Julia's wounds and took her to his cabin in the woods. There, he confessed that he might not be the original Jack. However, he revealed that he held memories of her and assured her that he had always loved her. Julia laughed at the situation and told him that before everything turned chaotic, he had promised to build a cabin by the lake where they would live together, spend their old age, and when they finally died, they would be buried together by the lake. Jack expressed with regret that he didn't remember any of that, but Julia reassured him, saying that those memories were what made him who he was. The next morning, Jack prepared to leave. Julia asked if they wouldn't stay there, but he reminded her that the Scavengers still needed their help. At the Scavenger base, they were ambushed and held at gunpoint. The leader approached and told him that if he had told him what he would see on the other side, he would have thought he was crazy. The man introduced himself as Malcolm and invited them to come back inside. Determined to carry out the mission at all costs, Jack agreed to adapt the drone for the attack. Meanwhile, Malcolm, in a moment of reflection, began to recount his personal experience before TET arrived. He explained that he had only been serving in the army for a year when it came. He vividly remembered how, in a devastating attack, the moon was shattered, an event that caused catastrophic consequences on Earth. Giant waves, unexpected earthquakes, and famine were just some of the horrors that followed that destruction. Then came the ships loaded with thousands of soldiers, clones of Jack and Victoria. These soldiers, who lacked memory and awareness of their true purpose, received a single order: to exterminate the Scavengers, who were actually the remaining humans. TET sought to drain one planet after another in search of energy, using its own inhabitants to its advantage. 50 years had passed since the platforms appeared, taking water from the Earth, until finally one of the soldiers decided to listen to the humans. Malcolm believed he had found a way out in it. They managed to reprogram the drone, but the moment it activated, it began to act hostile. Jack asked everyone to step back and assured them they didn't have to worry. As he looked around at the crowd, Malcolm, filled with eagerness and determination, wished he could be there in person to see the expression of whatever inhabited TET when the weapon destroyed its base. As he pulled the weapon from its hiding place, TET drones appeared and penetrated the hideout. Jack urged him to flee, and together they began firing at the machines, which had already claimed numerous lives. The drones moved with precision, shooting in all directions and mowing down anyone who got in their way. Julia ran with the others in search of shelter, but one of the machines was closely following them. When they found themselves cornered, the drone aimed at each of them. However, before it could fire, it fell to the ground after being disabled by the general. They managed to blow up the other two drones, freeing themselves from danger, but there were many injuries. Malcolm asked Jack to send the probe at all costs, however, they had lost it in the midst of the battle. Our protagonist, aware of the enormous risks involved, decided to take on the responsibility of transporting the bomb himself, despite the imminent danger this entailed. His determination drove him to move forward with the plan. However, Julia, upon learning of his decision, informed him that she would accompany him as well. She explained that, according to the instructions received from TET, she had been requested to be transported, and therefore her participation was essential in this process. Thus, they decided to return her to the cryogenic chamber along with the bomb. Once on the ship and en route to TET, Jack, in an attempt to better understand the situation, listened to the recording from the black box of the Odyssey. As he listened carefully, he realized a shocking revelation: he had been the original captain of that mission, with Victoria serving as co-pilot, and the person who initially gave them instructions from Earth was the same one currently directing their actions from the TET base. This cast doubt on the intentions and control behind the entire mission. They had lost all communication with Earth, and the ship was experiencing difficulties that put the lives of the entire crew at risk. Given the gravity of the situation and the need to make quick decisions, they decided that the most sensible course of action was to release the capsule containing the cryogenically frozen crew, hoping that at least they could save their lives. As a result of this decision, only the two pilots boarded the alien ship. There, the recording abruptly cut off, leaving Jack with an overwhelming sense of uncertainty and confusion. Inside the ship, the presumed agent informed Jack that she had detected irregularities in his heartbeat, which raised his suspicions about the visitor's intentions. However, after a brief reflection, he decided to be honest and admitted that his purpose was none other than to prevent the extinction of his species, an imminent threat that had brought humanity to the brink of disappearance. Upon hearing these words, the agent accepted his explanation. Finally, he arrived at the meeting with the entity responsible for the creation and manipulation of these replicas. The entity, which seemed to perceive every word, responded that Julia would not perish. Upon opening the capsule, they discover that Julia is not inside, but rather Malcolm. In a strategic and sacrificial act, they had swapped the capsules to ensure Julia's safety, keeping her away from danger. Before them, the entity, confident in its supremacy, warns them that no effort will be enough to defeat it, as it is now their god and its power is absolute. However, Jack and Malcolm, determined to fulfill their mission, recite the last lines of the poem, reaffirming their conviction that death is inevitable. With this certainty, they activate the nuclear bomb, triggering a devastating explosion that completely consumes the ship and, with it, the entity that had threatened humanity. 3 years have passed since that decisive day, 3 years since the war and the loss of Jack. Life on Earth has continued its course, and Julia, now a mother, has found refuge in the cabin she once shared with him. Together with her daughter, she has built the simple and peaceful life she always dreamed of. The little girl, who had been playing quietly, raised her hand and pointed to the other side of the lake. In the distance, Julia saw a boy accompanied by a group of people. At the end of the group appeared a figure that looked familiar. It was Jack, the same man who had been knocked unconscious in the desert on that fateful day when they crossed the border. In a firm voice, he expressed that they all shared memories and feelings, and that he had felt the need to return home, a home he had been tirelessly searching for over the past 3 years.